The wind howled like a wounded animal across the frozen wasteland, and Logan Kensington barely heard the infant's cry over the shrieking storm until his horse whinnied and refused to move another step forward. He squinted through the blinding white curtain of snow, his breath forming ice crystals on his beard, and then he saw her, a crumpled figure beside the rutted wagon trail leading out of Winnemucca, Nevada. Two bundles clutched against her chest. Logan swung down from his saddle, his boots crunching through the knee-deep snowdrift, and reached the young woman just as her eyes fluttered closed. Her lips were blue, her dark hair matted with ice, but the babies, God help them, the babies were still crying, thin wails that pierced straight through to his soul. "Madam, can you hear me?" Logan dropped to his knees beside her, but she did not respond. He pressed two fingers against her throat and felt the faint, thready pulse beneath her frozen skin. She was alive, barely, and the infants she clutched were wrapped in nothing more than thin cotton blankets, wholly inadequate for the January blizzard that had descended upon northern Nevada 3 days prior. It was 1884, and this winter had proven itself the cruelest in a decade. Logan did not waste time trying to rouse her. He shrugged out of his heavy sheepskin coat, feeling the immediate bite of cold through his wool shirt, and wrapped it around all three of them as best he could. Then he scooped the woman and both babies into his arms, grunting with the effort, and somehow managed to hoist the entire bundle onto his horse. He climbed up behind them, holding them secure against his chest, and turned his gelding back toward town. The ride took 40 minutes that felt like 40 hours. Logan talked to the woman the entire way, even though she could not hear him, telling her she was going to be fine, that her babies were going to be fine, that he had her now and he would not let anything happen to them. The infants had stopped crying, which worried him more than when they had been wailing. He pressed his face close to them and felt their shallow breathing against his cheek. When he finally reached the outskirts of Winnemucca, he did not head for the hotel or the boarding house. He rode straight to Doc Pritchard's place, a small white house at the end of Main Street, and kicked at the door with his boot until the elderly physician appeared, spectacles askew, clearly roused from sleep. "Dear God in heaven," Doc Pritchard breathed when he saw what Logan carried. "Bring them inside, quickly now." The next hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Doc Pritchard worked on the woman while his wife, Martha, tended to the infants by the stove. Logan stood uselessly in the corner, watching as they peeled away frozen clothing and wrapped all three patients in warm blankets and hot water bottles. The babies, twin girls who could not have been more than 3 months old, began to cry again once they warmed up, which Martha declared a good sign. The woman remained unconscious. "Will she live?" Logan finally asked as dawn broke outside the window. Doc Pritchard straightened from his examination, his expression grave. Her body temperature was dangerously low. Another hour out there and she would have been dead, no question. The babies too. "You saved their lives, Logan." "Someone left them out there," Logan said, and he could not keep the anger from his voice. "Who would do such a thing?" "That's a question for Sheriff Morrison," the doctor replied. "But first, let's make sure this young lady pulls through." It took another full day before the woman opened her eyes. Logan had not left the house, catching a few hours of restless sleep in the chair beside the bed where she lay. When her eyelids finally fluttered open, revealing eyes the color of spring leaves, he nearly knocked over his coffee in his haste to lean forward. "Easy now," he said softly. "You are safe. You are in Winnemucca at Doc Pritchard's place." She stared at him for a long moment, confusion and fear warring in her expression, and then her face transformed with sudden panic. "My babies! Where are my babies?" Right here, right here. Martha Pritchard appeared with one infant in her arms, the other sleeping in a basket nearby. Both healthy as can be, thanks to this man who found you. The woman's eyes filled with tears as Martha placed the baby in her arms. She held her daughter close, pressing her face against the infant's head, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Logan looked away, giving her a moment of privacy in her overwhelming relief. When she finally composed herself enough to speak, her voice was hoarse. "Thank you. I do not have words sufficient to thank you." "No thanks needed, madam," Logan said, though his ears reddened slightly. "What's your name? What happened to you out there?" She hesitated, and Logan saw calculation flicker across her features before resignation settled in. "My name is Alina Norwood, and the truth is, my husband's family left me there to die." The story came out slowly over the next few days as Alina regained her strength. She had married Thomas Norwood 2 years prior in Sacramento, a whirlwind courtship that had seemed like a fairy tale until reality set in. Thomas had brought her to Nevada to work his family's small ranch outside of Winnemucca, and at first, things had been tolerable. Then Alina discovered she was expecting twins, and Thomas's joy had quickly turned to resentment at the financial burden. When she gave birth to 2 daughters instead of the sons he wanted, his resentment curdled into something darker. Thomas had died 3 weeks earlier, thrown from a horse and breaking his neck. His 2 older brothers, who had never liked Alina, blamed her for their brother's distraction and subsequent death. With Thomas gone, they saw no reason to support his widow and her unwanted daughters. They had driven her out to the middle of nowhere during the blizzard and left her with nothing, telling her if she wanted to survive, she could walk back to wherever she came from. "They took everything," Alina told Logan on the 3rd day, sitting up in bed with both babies sleeping beside her. "Every penny Thomas had, the house, all of it. They said I had no claim because I could not prove the marriage was legal, even though it was. They burned the certificate right in front of me." Logan's jaw tightened. "That is murder, plain and simple. Sheriff Morrison needs to hear this." "And what will he do?" Alina's laugh was bitter. "The Norwoods own half the county. I am just some woman from California with no proof and no standing. You think any lawman is going to go after them on my word alone?" She was probably right, Logan realized with a sinking feeling. Justice in Nevada territory operated on a sliding scale that heavily favored men with money and land. Still, he reported what Alina had told him to Sheriff Morrison, who listened with a sympathetic expression and promised to look into it, which they both knew meant absolutely nothing. The question of what Alina would do next hung heavy in the air. She had no money, no family, and no prospects, along with 2 infant daughters to feed and clothe. The Pritchards were kind, but they could not house her indefinitely in their small home. The boarding house cost money she did not have. The only work available for a woman in her position was the kind that turned Logan's stomach to even contemplate. He found himself thinking about her constantly, this fierce young woman who had nearly died protecting her babies. Alina could not have been more than 22 or 23, with delicate features that belied the steel in her spine. She never complained, never wept about her circumstances where anyone could see, and showed nothing but gentle patience with her daughters even when exhaustion dragged at her like chains. Logan was 26 and had been working as a ranch hand and occasional scout for the past 8 years, ever since leaving his family's farm in Missouri. He had saved most of his earnings, living frugally and avoiding the gambling and drinking that claimed so many men's wages. He owned a small cabin on the outskirts of town with a few acres of land, nothing fancy but sturdy and weatherproof. He had been saving for a bigger spread, planning to start his own cattle operation someday. The idea came to him one sleepless night, and once it took root, he could not shake it loose. It was wild, impulsive, and completely unlike his usual careful nature. But sometimes life demanded bold action. He waited until Alina was up and around, moving carefully but growing stronger each day. He found her in the Pritchards' kitchen, folding clean laundry that Martha had insisted on washing for her. The babies dozed in their basket nearby, and winter sunlight streamed through the window, turning Alina's dark hair to mahogany. "Miss Norwood, could I speak with you for a moment?" Logan asked, hat in hand. She looked up, surprised. "Of course, Mr. Kensington." He had asked her to call him Logan multiple times, but she maintained the formal address, keeping distance between them. Logan understood. He was a stranger, regardless of the fact that he had saved her life, and she had learned the hard way that men could not be trusted. "I have a proposal for you," he began, then winced at how that sounded. "That is, I have an idea that might solve your current situation." Alina set down the shirt she had been folding, her expression guarded. "I am listening. You need a place to stay and a means to support yourself and your daughters. I have a cabin with plenty of room and more than enough income to provide for a family." He took a deep breath. "I am proposing marriage, Miss Norwood, a practical arrangement that would benefit us both." The silence that followed felt interminable. Alina's face had gone carefully blank, and Logan rushed to fill the void with more words. "I know we barely know each other. I know you have no reason to trust any man after what you have been through. I'm not expecting, that is, I would not expect anything from you beyond basic household management. You would have your own room. I would ask nothing more than your help running the home and perhaps, eventually, your companionship. But your daughters would have a father to protect them and provide for them, and you would have security and safety. That is all I am offering." Alina studied him for a long moment, her green eyes searching his face for something. "Why would you do this? You do not even know me." "I know enough," Logan said quietly. "I know you are brave and strong and devoted to your children. I know you deserve better than what life has handed you. And I know that I would like to help, if you will let me." "You could have any woman in this territory," Alina said. "Why would you want to saddle yourself with a widow and two babies that are not even yours?" Logan had asked himself the same question and found no easy answer. "Maybe I am tired of being alone. Maybe I want a family. Maybe I just think you deserve a chance to build a real life, not just survive. Does the reason matter so much?" Alina looked down at her daughters, and Logan saw her throat work as she swallowed hard. When she looked back up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I will not be a charity case, Mr. Kensington. If I agree to this, I will be a true partner. I will work hard and pull my weight. I will not be some helpless burden you must carry. I never thought otherwise, Miss Norwood. And if either of us comes to regret this arrangement, we will discuss it honestly like adults." "Agreed." She took a shaky breath. "Then yes, I will marry you." They were wed 3 days later in a quiet ceremony at the church, with Doc and Martha Pritchard serving as witnesses. Alina wore a borrowed dress, and Logan bought her a simple gold band from the general store. The babies slept through the entire service, which the Reverend declared a blessing. Sheriff Morrison attended, which surprised Logan until he realized the lawman wanted to make sure the marriage was legally documented. Whatever protection the Norwood brothers might have enjoyed did not extend to interfering with a legal marriage, particularly one witnessed by the town's most respected physician and performed by the Reverend himself. If the Norwoods wanted to make trouble, they would have to accept that Alina was now Alina Kensington, with a husband who would not hesitate to defend her. Logan loaded Alina and the twins into a borrowed wagon, and drove them to his cabin that same afternoon. The building was small but well-maintained, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area, 2 bedrooms and a loft above. It was not much, but it was clean and warm, with a good stove and sturdy furniture that Logan had built himself. "The larger bedroom is yours," Logan said as he carried in the baby's basket. "I will take the smaller one. I built a cradle last year thinking I might need it someday. It is in the barn. Let me fetch it for you." Alina stood in the center of the main room, slowly turning to take in her new home. When Logan returned with the cradle, setting it beside the bed in her room, he found her in the kitchen area, examining the shelves and cupboards. "You keep a neat house," she observed. "I try. Never saw the point in living like a pig just because I am a bachelor." He hesitated. "That is, I was a bachelor. We should probably discuss how this is going to work, the practical matters." They sat at the kitchen table, awkward as strangers, and worked out the basics. Logan would continue his work as a ranch hand, which meant he would be gone most days from dawn until dusk. Alina would manage the household, care for the babies, and tend the small kitchen garden once spring came. Logan would handle any heavy labor and repairs. They would share meals but otherwise maintain their separate spaces. "What should the babies call me?" Logan asked. "I do not want to presume anything." Alina considered this. "You will be the only father they know. When they are old enough to understand, I will tell them about Thomas. But I think it would be natural for them to call you Papa, if you are comfortable with that." Something warm unfurled in Logan's chest. "I would be honored." The first weeks of their marriage were strange and stilted, 2 wary people learning to coexist in close quarters. Alina kept the cabin spotless and cooked hearty meals that far exceeded Logan's previous bachelor fare. Logan made sure the firewood was always stocked and fixed the loose hinge on the cupboard that Alina mentioned once in passing. They were polite to each other, almost painfully so, each careful not to intrude on the other's space. The babies, whom Alina had named Emma and Sarah, began to thrive in the warmth and security of the cabin. They grew plumper, their cries more lusty and demanding. Logan found himself enchanted by them, these tiny creatures who seemed to change daily. He would sit by their cradle in the evening, letting them grip his calloused fingers with their impossibly small hands, marveling at their perfection. Alina watched these interactions with an expression Logan could not quite decipher. He worried sometimes that he was overstepping, that she resented his presence in her daughters' lives. But when he tried to pull back, she would ask him to hold one of the babies while she cooked, or request his opinion on whether Emma's cough sounded serious, drawing him back into the family circle. Spring came late that year, the snow finally melting in early April to reveal the muddy earth beneath. Logan helped Alina plant the kitchen garden, teaching her which vegetables grew best in Nevada's harsh climate. They worked side by side in companionable silence, and Logan found himself intensely aware of her presence beside him, the way strands of dark hair escaped her bun to curl against her neck, the determined set of her jaw as she wrestled with the rocky soil. "I never properly thanked you," Alina said one afternoon as they took a break from planting, sitting on the porch steps while the babies napped inside. "You have thanked me about 100 times," Logan replied with a slight smile. "Not for saving my life." "I have thanked you for that until the words lost all meaning, but I never thanked you for giving me back my dignity." She turned to look at him directly. "You have treated me with nothing but respect since the day we met. You kept your word about everything. You have been kind to my daughters and never made me feel like a burden or an obligation. That means more than you can possibly know." Logan felt his face heat. "You are not a burden, Alina. You have made this cabin a home. I have never been happier than these past months." Something shifted in her expression, a softening around her eyes. "Truly, truly." He held her gaze, willing her to see his sincerity. "I know this started as a practical arrangement, but I want you to know that I consider it the best decision I ever made." Alina looked away, but not before Logan saw the pleasure in her face. "I feel the same," she said softly. The walls between them began to come down after that conversation. Alina stopped flinching when Logan's hand accidentally brushed hers as he passed her the salt at dinner. Logan started sharing more about his day, telling her funny stories about the cattle and the other ranch hands. They began to sit together in the evenings after the babies were asleep, talking about everything and nothing, learning each other's histories and hopes and dreams. Logan learned that Alina had been raised by her aunt after her parents died of cholera when she was 8. She had loved reading and once dreamed of becoming a teacher, but her aunt had pushed her into marriage with Thomas instead, seeing it as the best security Alina could hope for. The marriage had not been happy, but Alina had tried to make it work, had tried to love Thomas even when he made it nearly impossible. "I thought I had failed," she confessed one night, her voice barely above a whisper. "When Thomas grew cold and distant after the babies were born, I thought it was my fault somehow, that I had not been a good enough wife." "That is not true," Logan said fiercely. "None of what happened to you was your fault. Thomas Norwood was a fool who did not appreciate what he had." Alina smiled, and in the firelight she was so beautiful that Logan's breath caught. "You are a good man, Logan Kensington. I am just a man who knows quality when he sees it." The moment stretched between them, charged with something new and fragile. Then Emma began crying in the bedroom, and Alina rose to tend to her, but the air had changed. They both felt it. Summer arrived with scorching heat that turned the landscape brown and dusty. Logan came home one evening in late June to find Alina in the garden, her face flushed from the sun, wrestling with an irrigation channel that had gotten clogged. "Let me help," he said, kneeling beside her. They worked together to clear the blockage, their shoulders bumping, hands occasionally tangling as they reached for the same rock or clump of dirt. When the water finally flowed free, Alina laughed with delight, and Logan found himself laughing too, giddy with something that had nothing to do with irrigation. Alina turned to him, still smiling, and there was dirt smudged across her cheek. Without thinking, Logan reached up to brush it away. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and Alina went very still, her eyes widening. Logan froze, suddenly aware of how close they were, how her lips were slightly parted, how his heart was hammering against his ribs. "Alina," he said, his voice rough. "Yes, can I kiss you?" She nodded, just the smallest dip of her chin, and Logan closed the distance between them. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, a question more than a demand. Alina's lips were soft and warm, and when she kissed him back, Logan felt something inside him that had been held tight for months finally release. They broke apart slowly, both slightly breathless. Alina's hand had come up to rest against Logan's chest, and she could surely feel how hard his heart was beating. "I have wanted to do that for a while now," Logan admitted. "Why did you wait so long?" Alina asked, and there was a teasing note in her voice that Logan had never heard before. "I did not want to presume. I did not want you to feel obligated." "Logan." Alina's hand slid up to cup his jaw, her touch achingly tender. "I have not felt obligated in months. What I feel for you is entirely voluntary." They kissed again, longer this time, deeper. And when they finally went inside for dinner, they were holding hands, a simple gesture that felt momentous. That night, after the babies were asleep, Alina appeared in Logan's doorway. He was sitting on his bed, pulling off his boots, and he looked up in surprise. I thought perhaps we might share a room now, Eleanor said, and even in the dim light, Logan could see her blush. If you want to, as husband and wife properly. Logan stood so quickly he nearly tripped over his discarded boot. I want to. God, Eleanor, I want to, but only if you are certain. I am certain. She crossed to him, taking both his hands in hers. I am falling in love with you, Logan. I think I have been for a while now. You are nothing like Thomas. You are kind and patient and good, and you love my daughters as if they were your own. How could I not fall in love with you? I love you too, Logan said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I have loved you for months. I think since the day you agreed to marry me and insisted you would not be a charity case. You are the strongest, most remarkable woman I have ever known, and I wake up grateful every single day that I found you in that snowstorm. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Then stop talking and kiss me again. Logan was happy to oblige. Their marriage transformed after that night into something neither of them had experienced before. This was partnership built on mutual respect, affection freely given and returned, passion tempered with tenderness. Logan had never known that marriage could be like this. Two people choosing each other every day, building something beautiful together brick by brick. Eleanor blossomed under the security and love Logan provided. Her smiles came easier, her laughter rang out more often. She sang while she worked, teaching the babies little songs as they began to babble and coo. The twins adored Logan, their faces lighting up whenever he came home, their arms reaching for him with complete trust. In August, Logan came home with news. The ranch owner is selling off parcels of his land. There is a nice section available, about 80 acres with good grazing and a creek running through it. I have enough saved to make the down payment if we are careful with expenses. Eleanor's face lit up. Your own land. Logan, that is wonderful. Our land, he corrected. If we do this, we do it together. I want your name on the deed beside mine. She stared at him. You would do that, Eleanor. You are my wife and partner in every sense of the word. Of course your name belongs on the deed. She kissed him then, hard and fierce, and whispered against his lips, I love you so much. They purchased the land in September, signing the papers together at the land office. Logan felt pride swell in his chest as he watched Eleanor carefully write her name next to his, the deed making official what he already knew in his heart. Everything he had was hers, everything he built was for their family. The first year of their marriage passed, then the second. The twins grew into sturdy toddlers with Logan's temperament and Eleanor's determination. They called him Papa without hesitation, and Logan loved them as fiercely as any father could. He and Eleanor slowly built up their herd, purchasing cattle one or two at a time as finances allowed. It was hard work, exhausting and often discouraging, but they faced every challenge together. Eleanor discovered she was pregnant again in the spring of 1886, nearly 2 years after their marriage. Logan was beside himself with joy, spinning her around the kitchen until she laughingly begged him to stop before she got dizzy. A baby, he kept saying, wonder in his voice. Our baby. Emma and Sarah are our babies too, Eleanor reminded him gently. I know, and I love them with everything I am, but this child, we are creating this one together. He placed his hand reverently on her still flat stomach. This is proof of what we have built, Eleanor. This is our love made real. Their son was born in December during another harsh Nevada winter, but this time, Eleanor was safe and warm, surrounded by love. Logan held her hand through the long labor, and when the doctor finally placed the squalling infant in his arms, Logan wept openly. He is perfect, Logan said, staring down at his son's red, wrinkled face. Eleanor, he is absolutely perfect. They named him Thomas after Alina's first husband, which surprised everyone except Logan. He understood that Alina needed to honor the man who had given her the twins, despite everything else. It was a gesture of forgiveness, of letting go of bitterness, and Logan loved her all the more for it. The twins, now 2.5, were fascinated by their baby brother. They would sit beside his cradle for hours, singing to him and trying to make him smile. Alina watched her 3 children together with a fullness in her heart she had never imagined possible. "You remember what you said to me the day you proposed?" Alina asked Logan one evening as they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. Thomas slept in her arms while the twins played in the yard under Logan's watchful eye. "I made several awkward speeches that day, as I recall," Logan replied with a self-deprecating smile. "You said you wanted to give me a chance to build a real life, not just survive." Alina turned to look at him, her eyes bright. "You have given me so much more than that, Logan. You have given me joy and safety and love beyond measure. You have given me a family and a home and a future I can actually look forward to. You saved my life that day in the snow, but you have spent every day since giving me reasons to live it fully." Logan pulled her close, careful of the baby between them, and kissed the top of her head. "You saved me too, you know. I was just going through the motions before you came along. You and the children gave my life meaning and purpose. Everything I do for this family." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank below the horizon and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Inside the cabin, a fire crackled warmly. In the barn, their growing herd of cattle settled in for the night. The land stretched out around them, 80 acres that belonged to them, purchased with hard work and determination. It had been nearly 3 years since Logan found Alina and her twins dying in the snow, 3 years since he wrapped them in his coat and brought them back to life. In that time, they had built something neither of them had thought possible, a marriage based not on obligation or convenience, but on genuine love and mutual respect. The Norwood brothers had left Winnemucca the previous year, their ranch failing after several poor seasons and bad business decisions. Logan had heard they moved to California, and he felt nothing but relief that they were gone. They could never hurt Alina again, could never threaten the family Logan had sworn to protect. As autumn turned to winter and 1886 drew to a close, Logan found himself reflecting on the strange and wonderful turn his life had taken. He had always been a practical man, careful and methodical in his planning. The decision to marry Alina had been the most impulsive thing he had ever done, and it had turned out to be the best decision of his life. Alina thrived in their marriage, her confidence growing along with their prosperity. She managed their household accounts with careful precision, suggesting improvements and investments that Logan readily agreed to. She was not content to simply keep house. She wanted to be an active partner in building their ranch, and Logan encouraged her every step of the way. The twins began talking in earnest that winter, their vocabulary exploding seemingly overnight. They chattered constantly, asking endless questions about everything they saw. Logan never tired of their curiosity, patiently explaining how things worked and why the sky was blue, and where the cattle went when they wandered over the hills. One cold January evening, almost exactly 3 years after Logan had found Alina, he stood in the doorway watching his family. Alina sat by the fire, nursing baby Thomas while she helped Emma sound out words from a primer. Sarah was curled up on the rug, playing with wooden blocks that Logan had carved for Christmas. The scene was so peaceful, so achingly domestic, that Logan had to pause and simply drink it in. Alina looked up and caught him staring. "What are you thinking about?" she asked with a knowing smile. I am thinking about how lucky I am. I am thinking about how close I came to riding past you that day, how if the storm had been just a little bit worse or my horse had not stopped when he did, I never would have found you. I am thinking about how different my life would be right now if I had made it back to town 5 minutes sooner and never saw you lying there in the snow. Eleanor's expression softened. I think about that too sometimes. I think about how close the girls and I came to dying, how Thomas's brothers actually succeeded in what they set out to do, except they did not account for you. You were our miracle, Logan. We were each other's miracles, Logan corrected, crossing to sit beside her. He stroked Thomas's downy head as the baby nursed contentedly. You gave my life meaning, Eleanor. You and these children are everything to me. I know. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I feel the same way about you. Spring of 1887 brought new challenges and new blessings. A late freeze killed some of their cattle, a financial blow that set them back several months. But they worked through it together, tightening their belts and finding ways to economize without sacrificing the children's well-being. Logan took extra work when he could find it, and Eleanor started selling eggs and butter to neighbors, every penny carefully saved toward rebuilding their herd. Through it all, their love for each other only deepened. They had been tested by hardship before and emerged stronger. This setback was just one more obstacle to overcome together. Logan marveled sometimes at Eleanor's resilience, the way she faced difficulties head-on without complaint. She was nothing like the half-frozen woman he had found in the snow, and yet she was exactly the same, that core of steel that had kept her alive through the blizzard still driving her forward. In May, Eleanor announced she was pregnant again. Logan was thrilled, though worried about adding another mouth to feed when finances were tight. Eleanor dismissed his concerns with a wave of her hand. "We will manage like we always do," she said firmly. "This baby is a blessing, Logan, not a burden." She was right, of course. Their second son, whom they named Samuel, was born the following January, healthy and robust. The twins, now 3.5, took their roles as big sisters seriously, always wanting to help with the new baby. Thomas, just over a year old himself, was mostly interested in pulling Samuel's toes, which made the baby squawk indignantly. Logan looked at his 4 children and felt his heart might burst from the love he felt for them. Emma and Sarah might not share his blood, but they were his daughters in every way that mattered. He had been there for their first steps, their first words, every milestone and memory. When people in town occasionally made comments about the twins not being his real children, Logan would fix them with a hard stare and inform them that the girls were as real as any child could be. "Thank you very much." The ranch slowly began to prosper as Logan's careful management and Eleanor's financial acumen paid off. By 1888, they had rebuilt their herd and added a few horses to their operation. Logan hired a young hand to help with the heavy work, which allowed him more time at home with his growing family. Those hours with Eleanor and the children were precious to him, more valuable than any amount of money. Eleanor was pregnant again by the summer of 1888, and Logan began to worry that they were having babies too quickly, that it was taking a toll on her health. But Eleanor assured him she was fine, that she had never been happier or healthier. Their daughter, whom they named Grace, was born the following spring, a delicate little thing with Eleanor's dark hair and Logan's blue eyes. "5 children," Logan said in wonder, holding Grace while Eleanor rested after the birth. "We have 5 children, Eleanor. Are you complaining?" she asked with a tired smile. "Not for a single second. I am just amazed at the family we have built." The twins started school that fall, walking the 3 miles to the small schoolhouse in town each morning. Logan worried about them making the journey, but Alina reminded him that they were sturdy girls who had survived far worse than a long walk. Still, he made sure they had good boots and warm coats, and he taught them to watch out for snakes and other dangers. Emma was the more academically inclined of the twins, devouring books and always raising her hand to answer the teacher's questions. Sarah preferred working with her hands, helping Logan with the horses and begging to learn how to rope and ride. Logan taught them both everything he knew, making no distinction between what boys should learn and what girls should learn. They were ranch children, and they needed to know how to handle themselves in all situations. Thomas and Samuel grew into rowdy little boys who kept Alina running from sunup to sundown. They got into everything, climbing where they should not climb, touching things they should not touch, and generally creating chaos wherever they went. But they were also sweet and affectionate, always ready with hugs and kisses for their parents. Grace was the baby, doted on by everyone in the family. The twins loved having a little sister to dress up and play with, and the boys were surprisingly gentle with her, bringing her flowers and interesting rocks they found in their explorations. By 1890, 6 years after their marriage, Logan and Alina had built a thriving ranch and a beautiful family. The cabin had been expanded with 2 additional rooms to accommodate everyone, and there was talk of building a proper ranch house once finances allowed. They had weathered droughts and hard winters, cattle disease and financial setbacks, and emerged stronger each time. One evening in late summer, after all the children were finally asleep, Logan and Alina sat on the porch as they often did, watching the stars come out. Alina was nursing 2-month-old Grace, and Logan had his arm around her shoulders, content in the peaceful moment. "Do you ever think about that day?" Alina asked softly. "The day you found us." "All the time," Logan admitted. "I think about how easily it could have gone differently. I think about how close I came to losing you before I ever knew you." "I used to have nightmares about it," Alina confessed. "Those first few months after we married, I would wake up in a panic, convinced I was still in the snow, still freezing to death. But you were always there, and you would hold me until I remembered I was safe." "You are safe," Logan said firmly. "You will always be safe with me, Alina. I will spend the rest of my life making sure of it." "I know." She shifted to look up at him. "That is why I can hardly remember what it felt like to be afraid anymore. You have given me such security, such certainty. I know beyond any doubt that you will always protect me and our children, that you will always put our family first. That kind of trust is precious, Logan." He kissed her then, long and slow, savoring the taste of her lips and the warmth of her body against his. Even after 6 years of marriage, his desire for her had not dimmed. If anything, it had grown stronger as their emotional connection deepened. He loved everything about her, from her sharp mind to her generous heart to the way she hummed while she cooked. "I want to give you everything," Logan murmured against her lips. "Everything you deserve and more." "You already have," Alina replied. "You have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams, Logan. You have given me love and children and a home where I feel valued and cherished. What more could I possibly want?" They sat together until the moon rose high overhead, speaking of their hopes for the future and their gratitude for the present. Inside the cabin, their children slept peacefully, safe and secure in the home their parents had built for them. The land stretched out around them, 80 acres of possibility and promise. The years continued to roll by, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. The twins grew into capable young women who could ride and rope as well as any cowboy. Thomas and Samuel became their father's right-hand men on the ranch, learning the business from the ground up. Grace was the scholar of the family, always with her nose in a book, dreaming of far-off places. In 1895, 11 years after Logan had found Alina in the snow, they finally built the ranch house they had dreamed of. It was a sprawling structure with enough bedrooms for everyone, a large kitchen where Alina could work her magic, and a wide porch perfect for watching sunsets. Logan carved Alina's name beside his own into a beam above the front door, a permanent testament to their partnership. Emma and Sarah were 15 now, young women on the cusp of adulthood. They had suitors already, young men from neighboring ranches who came calling with flowers and nervous smiles. Logan found himself surprisingly protective, interrogating each potential beau with a stern expression that Alina found amusing. "You need to let them grow up," she told him one evening after he had scared off yet another hapless young man. "I know," Logan sighed. "I just remember how young and stupid I was at that age. I do not want anyone treating them the way Thomas Norwood treated you." Alina took his face between her hands. "You are not going to let that happen. You are going to teach them what a good man looks like, what respect and kindness and true love look like, because they have watched us their entire lives. They will not settle for less than what we have, Logan. We have shown them what marriage should be." She was right, as usual. When Emma finally chose a husband 2 years later, she picked a steady young rancher named David who reminded Logan quite a bit of himself. The wedding was a grand affair, the entire community turning out to celebrate. Logan walked Emma down the aisle with tears in his eyes, remembering the tiny infant he had helped save from the snow, marveling at the confident young woman she had become. Sarah married a year later, choosing a kind-hearted horse trainer who worshipped the ground she walked on. Both daughters settled nearby, close enough to visit regularly, but far enough to build their own lives. They gave Logan and Alina grandchildren, beautiful babies that Logan dandled on his knee with the same wonder he had felt holding his own children. Thomas, Samuel, and Grace showed no signs of settling down anytime soon, content to work the ranch and live at home. Logan did not mind. He enjoyed having his family around him, enjoyed the laughter and chaos of a house full of people he loved. In 1900, 16 years after that fateful day in the snow, Logan was 42 and Alina was 40. They had more gray in their hair now, more lines around their eyes, but their love had not diminished one bit. If anything, it had grown richer and deeper with time, like good whiskey aged to perfection. One winter evening, very similar to the night Logan had found Alina, they stood together on the porch of their ranch house, watching snow begin to fall. It was not a blizzard like that long-ago storm, just a gentle snowfall that would dust the ground white by morning. "Do you remember?" Alina asked, slipping her hand into Logan's. "Every detail," Logan replied. "The sound of the wind, the way my horse stopped and would not move forward, the moment I saw you lying there with the babies. I thought my heart would stop. Mine nearly did." Alina leaned against him. "But you saved us. You gave us a second chance at life, Logan, and we have made the most of it." Logan thought about everything that had happened since that day. 5 children raised to adulthood, 3 still at home and 2 married with families of their own. A successful ranch that provided well for all of them. A marriage that had exceeded every expectation, a partnership built on love and trust and mutual respect. A lifetime of memories, both joyful and challenging, that they had faced together. "I am the one who got the second chance," Logan said. "I was just existing before you came into my life, Alina. You taught me how to truly live." They stood together in the falling snow, watching it transform the familiar landscape into something magical and new. Inside the house, they could hear their children talking and laughing, could smell the dinner Alina had prepared earlier warming on the stove. Everything they had built together, everything they had survived and overcome and achieved, had led to this perfect moment of contentment. "I love you," Alina said, the words as meaningful now as they had been the first time she spoke them. "I love you too," Logan replied. "Today, tomorrow, and all the days after. You are everything to me, Alina. You and our family are the greatest blessing I have ever known." The snow continued to fall softly around them, a reminder of where they had started and how far they had come. That long ago, blizzard had nearly ended Alina's life, but instead, it had brought her to Logan, had created the foundation for everything beautiful that came after. Sometimes, Logan thought, the worst storms lead to the brightest dawns. As they turned to go inside, back to the warmth and noise and love of their family, Logan took one last look at the snowy landscape. He remembered the terrified man he had been that night, desperately fighting to keep 3 strangers alive, having no idea that he was actually saving his own future. He remembered the feel of Alina's cold skin, the faint sound of the baby's cries, the way his heart had pounded with fear and determination. And now, 16 years later, he stood in front of a home he had built with his own hands, filled with children and grandchildren, beside a woman he loved more than life itself. It was, he thought, the best possible ending to a story that had started with such heartbreak and desperation. Inside, Thomas was arguing with Samuel about something trivial, their voices rising in good-natured debate. Grace was trying to mediate, her calm voice a contrast to her brother's excitement. Alina smiled at the familiar chaos and moved to settle the dispute, her presence immediately bringing peace. Logan watched his wife move through their home with confidence and grace, still as beautiful to him now as she had been at 24, maybe more so because of everything they had weathered together. She caught his eye and smiled, that special smile that was just for him, and Logan felt his heart swell with gratitude. This was what he had worked for, what he had built, what he had devoted his life to creating. This family, this home, this love that had started on the coldest, darkest night and had grown into something warm and bright and enduring. He had wrapped 3 dying strangers in his coat 16 years ago, and in return, they had wrapped him in a life beyond his wildest dreams. The snow fell outside, peaceful and beautiful, no longer threatening but simply part of the natural rhythm of the seasons. Inside, the fire crackled, children laughed, and Alina began serving dinner, calling everyone to the table. Logan took his seat at the head of the table, looking around at the faces of the people he loved most in the world. "Let us give thanks," he said, and everyone bowed their heads. "For family, for health, for the food before us and the roof over our heads. For every blessing, large and small, that we have been given, and for love, which makes all things possible." "Amen," everyone echoed, and then the meal began with the cheerful chaos that characterized every family dinner. Later that night, after the dishes were washed and the children had scattered to their various activities, Logan and Alina retired to their bedroom. It was a comfortable space, filled with furniture Logan had built and quilts Alina had sewn, little pieces of their shared life reflected in every corner. Alina sat at her vanity, brushing out her long hair, and Logan watched her from the bed, never tiring of this nightly ritual. After all these years, the sight of her still stirred something deep in his chest, a combination of desire and tenderness and overwhelming gratitude. "What are you thinking about?" Alina asked, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "Everything," Logan replied honestly. "The past, the present, the future. How lucky I am. How much I love you." Alina set down her brush and came to sit beside him on the bed. I am the lucky one. When Thomas's brothers left me in that snow, I thought my life was over. I thought my babies were going to die, and it would be my fault for not being strong enough to save them. I had given up, Logan. I was ready to close my eyes and never open them again. Do not, Logan said, his voice rough with emotion. Do not think about what might have been. I am not dwelling on it, Alina assured him. I am celebrating what is. You found us when we needed you most. You saved us, protected us, gave us a home and a family. You loved me when I thought I would never trust a man again. You have been the best husband, the best father, the best partner I could have imagined. I want you to know how much that means, Logan. I want you to know that every single day I wake up grateful that you are mine. Logan pulled her close, holding her tight against his chest. You are my whole world, Alina. You and our children, the family we built together. I would do it all again in a heartbeat, every cold night, every hard season, every struggle. It was all worth it to get to this moment, right here with you. They lay down together, Alina's head on Logan's shoulder, their bodies fitting together perfectly after years of practice. Outside, the snow continued to fall, transforming the world into something clean and new. Inside, surrounded by love and warmth, Logan and Alina drifted towards sleep, secure in the knowledge that they had found something precious and rare. The years would continue to pass, bringing new challenges and new joys. Their children would grow and change, would bring home partners and babies of their own. The ranch would expand and evolve. The world would march forward with all its inevitable progress and problems. But through it all, Logan and Alina would face everything together, their love the foundation on which everything else was built. They had started in the snow, two strangers brought together by desperation and chance. They had built something beautiful from those desperate beginnings, had proven that love could grow even in the harshest conditions. Their story could have been a tragedy, but instead, it became a testament to the power of compassion, courage, and commitment. As Logan closed his eyes, Alina's breathing already evening out as she fell asleep, he sent up a silent prayer of thanks to whatever force had led him down that trail on that terrible night. He had thought he was just saving 3 lives that night, but in reality, he had been saving his own. Alina and the twins had given him purpose and meaning, had transformed him from a solitary cowboy into a husband and father, had filled his life with love and laughter and all the messy, beautiful chaos of family. The snow fell silently outside, covering the ground in white, peaceful and pure. Inside the ranch house, the fire burned low in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls. In their bedrooms, children slept soundly, safe and secure. And in the master bedroom, Logan held Alina close, 2 people who had found each other against all odds and built a love that would last a lifetime. This was their happily ever after, hard-won and deeply cherished. It had started with a desperate act of kindness on a frozen Nevada trail, and it had grown into something neither of them could have predicted. They had been strangers that night, but now they were everything to each other, partners in the truest sense, 2 souls that had found their perfect match. As the clock struck midnight, marking the beginning of a new day, Logan smiled in his sleep, Alina warm in his arms, and dreamed of all the tomorrows yet to come. They had been given a gift that night in the snow, the gift of a second chance, and they had made the most of it. They had built a life worth living, a love worth keeping, a family worth fighting for. And in the end, that was all anyone could ask for, a life filled with love and purpose, surrounded by people who mattered. Logan had found that and so much more when he wrapped 3 dying strangers in his coat. He had saved their lives, and in doing so, they had saved his. It was a fair trade, the best trade, and one he would make again and again, every single time. The snow stopped falling just before dawn, leaving behind a world transformed and beautiful. When Logan and Alina woke to face a new day, they did so together, as they had every day since that fateful winter night 16 years ago. And they would continue to face each new day together, hand in hand, heart to heart, for all the years to come. That was their promise to each other, their gift to their children, their legacy to the world. They had taken the worst that life could throw at them and turned it into something beautiful, proving that love could triumph over any adversity, that family could be built from the most unlikely beginnings, and that sometimes the coldest nights lead to the warmest tomorrows.